Mayor Whaley, Steve Lamberti, thank you both so much for joining us here for the kickoff to our Housing Innovation Council. We're going to get right into it. In 2020, business leaders, elected officials, and all Americans have had to confront a historic crisis in COVID-19. 40 million plus Americans have filed unemployment claims, and a large portion of the American economy has been forced to a halt. Beyond day-to-day responses taken by property owners and government leaders, in what ways do we think that this crisis is going to force industry and government to reimagine how multifamily housing operates as a field? We'll start with you, Mayor Whaley, about what you've seen and your thoughts moving forward.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here and excited to talk to you, Jordan, and to Steve. I think for us, what we've seen is really the changing around the spaces that people cohabitate in, right? And so that has been a big change during COVID, and it's something that people really long for in multifamily, though, too. So, making these spaces more outdoors, I think, is really key as we see the benefit to that during COVID, but also making sure that there's a lot more staff that has to do to make sure that they're clean and that people can use them and be able to have that area. All across the country, not just in Dayton, I have friends that live in apartment complexes, and that's been the big challenge for the multifamily areas. Is just, sometimes that constraint during something like COVID that really I don't think we were. Maybe some really smart doctors had thought about pandemics, but I have to be honest, I don't think a lot of us were thinking a lot about what life would be like in a pandemic. And so those are the changes I think that will change what people want out of multifamily. And then I think developers will have to adjust.
Steve, you run one of the largest multifamily organizations in the country. How has this pandemic changed your thinking, if at all, about how you may have to reimagine, from an industry leadership perspective?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and Mayor, it's a pleasure to meet you. I think many of her comments are spot on. I think the multifamily housing industry is typical where people get up in the morning and go to work at 6 to 7 a.m. and they're gone all day and they come home in the evening. But with the pandemic, it certainly changed that. People were home for extended periods of time in their apartments, using the facilities, things of this nature. So I think it taught us a lot about the human spirit, not only for staffing, but for residents and individuals. So I think many things came to pass. I think that the mayor is spot on that us as business, civil servants, people in general, never anticipated this. And there's many things that helped us adapt to it. Technology being first and foremost. From the business side, technology enabled us to continue to provide service to our clients and residents through communications. They were able to pay their rent on time. We were able to provide services when and wherever possible. We were able to lease apartments sight unseen for a significant amount of residents and customers.
Thank you very much, Steve. And, taking a little bit of a step back here, looking at the industry beyond COVID-19, it's no secret that cost of living is increasing across American cities and states. As an owner-operator, Steve, how do you think about this cost of living fact when it comes to strategy and thinking about, your business growth?
Well, first and foremost, affordability is a significant word in my day-to-day business. Of our portfolio, we run two sides of it. We have a conventional set of apartment buildings throughout the U.S., and then we also have a sizable set of multifamily properties on affordability as well, low-income housing tax credit and things of that nature. So as we look at the industry and as we look at what's happening with unemployment, we've got over 20 million people unemployed today through the pandemic. We look at rising costs for construction and land and things of that nature. And we look at affordability. That's extremely important. So strategy for us is looking at our properties, where are they located, what kind of services can we provide, and where are they in a pricing range. If we look at the overall average income of people in the United States, I believe a family of four is right around $59,000. So when you start to look at that and you look at rental rates, you look at products, you look at property, that has a significant impact on it. So we are focused on the cliche comment of where America lives they live in our apartment buildings. On the affordable side, for about 15,000 units, and our conventional side, which we call B-grade apartments, which is right around $1,250 a month. So when we're looking at providing housing, affordability is important, location, quality of the housing, jobs, and things of that nature play into our strategy as a major landlord.
Mayor Whaley, from where you sit in Dayton, it's also valuable to know you're on the executive leadership team of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. How do you balance the need for a growing, thriving economy with the need to create affordable, livable cities? Love your perspective, both from the city you lead as well as your national leadership perch here.
Well, I think they are the same, frankly. I mean, a growing, thriving economy is one that is really working for everybody, not just one section of a group of people. And we're seeing that need, especially today, around just how tough economic inequality can be. So I actually think that's what all cities are really thriving for, is a growing, thriving economy that works for everyone. And so that means that it is a livable and affordable place for everyone too. And you can't really do one without the other.
The National Multifamily Housing Council, National Apartment Association have both been vocal about the need for federal renter assistance to help folks pay their rent. And that feels like an area of common ground in this pandemic. I want to go to you, Mayor Whaley, first to talk about where else might there be common ground between multifamily owner operators and public officials here, as we move forward in the months and years ahead.
Well, I think you're right about rental assistance is a place that everybody's coming to. And quite frankly, we're not seeing enough of it, even during COVID. I think there is this overall issue, particularly, I do think that housing decisions are very local, right? In local nature. The cost of living is much cheaper in my city than it is in Miami Beach. And so what affordability is in Miami Beach is completely different than what affordability is in Dayton. But I do think that there is this fundamental question that this country has to ask. And we're seeing it particularly when we see cities like LA that have homeless populations that equal the size of my largest suburb in Dayton. Is housing a human right? And if it is, then there's a real need for subsidy to really step in. And when we see also the effect it has, particularly around children not being housed or moving every month on housing, it affects our long-term viability as a community and a country, because you're not just dealing with the basic need. So I think that's a place around rental assistance that more discussion and more action needs to be taken. I was pleased to see it move during COVID, but I think we need to have more of that in communities as we continue to fight for housing affordability.
I want to talk about this concept of cities, and the exceptionalism with which a lot of business leaders and mayors talk about them, in the last years and beyond. COVID-19 has kind of generated a lot of hot takes in the press and punditry, around the future of cities and whether major metropolitan areas are still going to be attractive to renters. Mayor, wondering your perspective there, both kind of from the broad strokes U.S. Conference of Mayors perspective and from where you sit in Dayton, your take on the future of cities. Are you bullish?
Well, I do think COVID has made people think about the future and in a very different way. But of course, cities are where 86% of people live. And so I don't think cities are going anywhere. How cities look might change a bit, particularly around some density issue. One of the things about urban centers and the creation of urban centers over the past 10 years is the market has really driven that. And we're seeing this real want for people to be able to have these sense of place. And so I think that will still exist. I do think things like retail are going to be much different. So I think there'll be different parts of our market that will change. But I do think that people will still want to live in communities that are walkable and that have really great amenities.
We could go on for hours here, but the way I'd love to kind of wrap up our discussion here is to kind of go to you first, Steve. As a multifamily industry veteran and an industry leader, love to kind of ask you two questions. One thing that keeps you up at night when thinking about the future in the months and years ahead, and one area where you really feel optimism and opportunity.
What keeps me up is safety. The concerns for my staffs, we're on AB schedules, the concern for our residents, our customers. I mean, this has been a significant toll on the world. How can I ensure that our coworkers are safe, our residents, our customers, and things of that nature? So that's what keeps me up at night. What gives me positive thoughts is adaptability of people. In the multifamily industry, we have always historically felt everybody had to come tour the property in person to rent an apartment. Same thing with shopping before Amazon 5-6 years ago. Now we see where technology has changed our lives. Did it with shopping with Amazon, and it's done it with leasing and renting apartments. The last 60 days, we have rented significant apartments without human contact, all through technology. So I think as technology continues to evolve, it will help us and assist us as a society and allow us to continue to grow and prosper.
Mayor Whaley, mayors have to get things done. There's no Democratic or Republican way to pick up and take out the garbage, as they say. I want to pose the same question to you. One thing that keeps you up at night leading your city and as a national leader yourself, and one reason that you feel optimistic on the housing front in particular in the months and years ahead.
Well, I think Steve's right. Trying to ensure safety and helping people make personal choices that keep them safe, right? I think there is a significant amount of fatigue around 100 days and maybe, another 100 days. And hopefully it's only that, but, the fatigue around the human spirit is real. And, getting folks to stay focused around that is something that we continue to worry about and message about and talk about. And, I'm fatigued too, about it too. So I understand that human spirit's nature to just be like, when are we done with this already, right? And I worry about that. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful generally in the discussion around equity and this discussion, particularly the younger generation, really demanding much quicker than my generation and the generations before me for some real systemic change in our communities. And I think that what we are witnessing here in 2020 is a pivotal moment that just happens to come during a pandemic. I think the pandemic does contribute to this pivotal moment of wanting to treat people and people be treated equally and with equity. And I'm really excited about that. It's a challenging time to lead through that, but it is a time that I think people will definitely look on so many things before COVID and after COVID in our country. And they have all these different pieces that are part of that. And that's, I think, an exciting time here in America.
Mayor Nan Whaley, Steve Lamberti, president of Highmark Residential, thank you both so much for being part of our Innovation Council. I really appreciate you joining us here.
Hey, Jordan, thank you.
Thank you very much. My best to you both, and be safe.